When her Aunt Margaret passed away, Clara Hensley thought grief would be her only burden. But the attorney's letter she received one rainy afternoon changed everything. Margaret had left Clara her entire estate, an ancient Victorian mansion in the countryside of Dorset. It stood silent and unwelcoming, shrouded by ivy and mist. For years, Clara's family had spoken of the house only in whispers. They called it cursed, a place where people disappeared and shadows remembered names. Still, Clara went. The long driveway twisted through dying trees before the house appeared. Massive, decaying, and alive in a way that made her stomach turn. Its windows were dark eyes, and as she stepped from her car, the wind seemed to sigh her name. Inside, dust floated through dim light like restless ghosts. The air smelled of mold and old books. A portrait of Aunt Margaret hung in the foyer, stern, unyielding, her eyes too knowing. A note had been left beneath the frame. "Welcome home, Clara. Find what's yours, but beware what you awaken." That first night, Clara explored. The house was filled with locked doors, faded tapestries, and mirrors that warped her reflection. Somewhere deep within, something knocked, rhythmic, deliberate. She told herself it was pipes, or rats, or the wind. But at midnight, the knocking stopped, and a whisper replaced it. "You came back." Clara froze. The voice came from nowhere and everywhere at once. She ran upstairs, into what must have been her aunt's study. Papers were scattered across the desk. Wills, deeds, family records. One photograph caught her eye. A young woman who looked almost identical to her, standing beside a man in the same house decades ago. Scrawled across the back were words that chilled her blood. The bloodline must continue. The next morning, she found a sealed envelope in her room. Inside was a brass key and a note. "The seller keeps the truth." Clara's hands trembled as she unlocked the heavy door leading downward. The smell of damp earth and rot filled her lungs. Candles lined the stone corridor as if waiting for her. At the end was a wooden chest, bound with iron clasps. She hesitated only a moment before opening it. Inside were bones, human, small, and wrapped in lace. Beside them, an old diary. Margaret's handwriting filled the pages, confessions spilling across time. Clara read in horror as her aunt described the inheritance, a pact made generations ago to protect their family's fortune. Each heiress was chosen not just to inherit the estate, but to feed it. The mansion demanded blood, sacrifice, to preserve the wealth and youth of its owner. If the ritual was broken, the house would consume the heir instead. Clara's breath caught. The last entry ended with a final plea. "The house will choose. It always does. Forgive me, my child." The floorboards above creaked. Then again. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. She turned toward the cellar stairs, heart hammering. The air grew cold, and shadows pooled at her feet, rising like smoke. When she looked back at the open chest, the bones were gone. Something whispered behind her ear, "Your turn." Clara ran, but the halls changed. Doors led to nowhere. Mirrors reflected rooms she'd never seen. The house pulsed, alive, hungry. From the reflection, she saw herself, older, crueler, her eyes black and hollow. The reflection smiled. "You can't escape inheritance," it said. Days passed, or maybe hours. She lost track. The house no longer obeyed time. Whispers became laughter. Furniture shifted when she wasn't looking. And through it all, she felt her aunt's presence, not watching but waiting. Finally, desperate, Clara tried to burn the house. She poured gasoline through the halls and struck a match. But the flame died instantly, snuffed out by something unseen. The walls began to breathe. Her aunt's portrait smiled. Then came the visions. She saw the women before her, ancestors bound by the same curse, screaming, fading, consumed. They lived forever, but never left. They became the house. Clara fell to her knees, begging, "What do you want from me?" The answer came through the walls, "Stay." The next morning, the real estate agent arrived to check on the property. The gate stood open. Smoke lingered faintly, though no fire had burned. Inside, the mansion was spotless, as if restored overnight. The portrait of Aunt Margaret had changed. Now, it was Clara's face on the canvas, eyes unblinking. The agent shivered and stepped back. Behind him, the door closed softly. From within the house, faint laughter echoed, a woman's, familiar and eternal. And the whisper came again, drifting through the cold air. The bloodline continues.